All right, I think we're live, man. Just push one in the chat if you can hear me. You hear me now? Yeah, just push one if you can hear me. Okay, cool. Thanks for the confirmation, man. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode 787, Space and Technology. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. Also hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from us. And if you want to engage in the discussion, there'll be a link in the chat. Make sure you update your Zoom client. There is a new Zoom update available that came out a few days ago. All right, let me drop the link in the chat and then update the docket, and then we can get going. All right, let's get started. Drop this link in the chat for you guys if you want to come up. If not, we'll peel out of here. Right. What's going on, Complex?
Mike V, what it do, bro? You hear me?
You got a lot of static on.
Oh, all right. Hold up.
You got a lot of static, man.
Hey, Mike, what about now?
You have a lot of static.
I still got static? Shit. All right, hold on. Hey, just get started, dude. Let me sort this out. Hey, Mike, is there still static?
Yes, a lot of static.
Damn. Hey, go ahead and get started, man. Let me I'll probably just drop down and come back in.
All right. All right, first item on the docket is from Al Jazeera. U.S. solar projects communities band together to share energy. This is something that we have been talking about for quite some time. I want you all to pay attention to what's being said here.
Roscoe says it feels good to.
I'm sorry, just give me 1 second.
To now be part of the battle against climate change. The 59-year-old Washington, D.C. artist, known for her sewing designs and eclectic style, says she used to think green energy was only for wealthy homeowners.
I started seeing these things on top of people's roofs. I was like, for the people who had the houses, it doesn't concern me because I'm in an apartment.
Roscoe is enrolled in a city program for low-income residents to receive discounted electricity powered by solar energy.
Originally, my bill would be $100-something. It's down to $12.
Green power will come from these 4,000 solar panels installed atop an underground water tank that holds municipal water. Bracken Hendricks is the solar project's lead developer.
All of the energy flowing off of this project is given away for free, and that's going to equal a reduction of energy bills, electricity bills, for 500 families in Washington, D.C.
The project costs $5 million, covered by investors and government grants. Hendricks says the system will eventually pay for itself through the sales of renewable energy credits to the power company. Remaining profits will go to a housing charity that co-owns the project.
We're building clean energy projects in community. We're taking the wealth created by that energy installation, and we're making sure that it's flowing back to the community itself.
If all goes according to plan, this field will generate green energy, solar energy for Washington, D.C. for the next 2 decades. This is a city that is a leader in green energy, using renewables to meet more than 60% of its energy needs. Now the challenge is to have more of this in more places.
Every community and every family can help to save the planet and save money to boot.
Congress recently passed climate legislation that includes billions of dollars for clean energy projects with a focus on disadvantaged communities. The goal is to cut U.S. carbon emissions by half by 2030. And Roscoe says she's glad to have been drafted.
I feel like I'm a part of something.
Heidi Jo Castro, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Now, we have been talking about this probably since the inception of this channel, that these sort of projects are important and will be the future of STEM development in predominantly Black neighborhoods and cities and communities, and that this is how you actually take ownership of land, how you take ownership and engage in the technology, and how you engage in policy, public policy. This all came from the infrastructure bill and the inflation bill. Monies were allocated for these sort of projects. Okay, and so
hey, Mike, how am I coming across now?
Great, fine.
Okay, all right, cool. Go ahead.
Yep. And so when we, what you're seeing in this video is a template of how you go about actually getting involved in the emerging technologies industry, such as renewable energies, how you allocate the production of the usage of it so that people in the community can actually take advantage of it. You don't have to own a home in order to get involved in renewable energies. And so these sort of projects are starting to prop up now. I mean, we were talking about this 2, 3, 4 years ago, but now you're starting to really see them come out of the woodwork, especially with money that was allocated from the administration. Complex, you got a lot of static. Yeah, there's a lot of static coming from Complex. I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, but just keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. Wait, MOT, you got anything you want to weigh in on this?
Actually, that's why I gotta leave YouTube, because we're working on some things like that in Colorado and Mississippi right now along the same lines. Doing things just like that, and that's why I gotta leave YouTube, because I can't be associated with this nonsense right here and actually be doing real stuff out in the real world. So that's why I've been cutting back on content and all that kind of other stuff, because there are organizations that I'm a part of that are actually doing things in the real world, and I just can't be associated with this nonsense around here and still try to do things like that. So these things are real. They are for low income communities, Black, white, Hispanic overall. They do not cost that much. Like Mississippi is different because Mississippi have the state owns the power company, but in Colorado they don't. So you have two different setups who's moving in the same direction. So since I know how both infrastructures work, there's a lot of things that's being paid to actually set up these things in both areas. So this is for real.
Yeah.
Power is going to be cheaper to actually produce once you get rid of these monopolized mega corporations who are for profit, and the only thing you have to do is just provide the actual need for the actual city. The data is there, has been there for a while, and the actual how much they charge the actual state isn't even nowhere near the point of being relative for what they actually produce. Like there's a couple of states where I own places in, and I have a minimum fee that I have to pay that is far higher than the people who actually live there and actually use power. Because I don't even use power because I just own a place there and nothing's on.
Mhm.
So if you can multiply that in the thousands, and you could just turn around and see that there's really not much that needs to be produced for these people in these specific areas. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, and it creates jobs, it creates industry, and it's just a good investment for the Black community when you really think about it long term. It just makes a lot more sense to do this. We have a lot of vacant parcels. I think a couple of years ago, we talked about guerrilla farming, and what you had was these vacant parcels in these predominantly Black neighborhoods that were not being utilized, and they could not be permitted for housing use. You couldn't put a house on it because it didn't align with the zoning laws. But what you could do is you could take ownership of the land, and then you can actually put it into a community trust, which then would actually allow you to grow crops on there, such as squash, carrots, different sort of vegetables and other produce that could be produced off of it. And then you can turn it, and then you can actually supply different sort of stores and restaurants and stuff like that. Whole Foods is really good about buying local.
Locally.
Yeah, they buy local. And so that's where a lot of your stuff would come from. But most people weren't really paying attention. But now you're starting to see the idea of land ownership being a necessity going forward. You can't have a conversation about building communities until you start talking about the land.
Hey, Mike, am I coming across good, man? Am I sounding good?
Yeah, you're good now. Yeah.
Dude, I don't know what the hell's ever since the heat started hitting, man. I mean, everything's been real touchy-goey. Just a quick point on that, Mike. I mean, though it's those types of setups that also feed into like your local food farmers markets, right?
Yeah.
Right. So now this is where you have a convergence of your farmers markets, your craft food artisans who make stuff from the local produce and all of that. It was the guerrilla farming. We did two of them. It was the guerrilla farming and fourth industrial real estate.
What we're talking about though is the renewable energy aspect, right?
That was just following up on that point right there. Okay. When you mentioned the guerrilla farming, I was like, no, that was the guerrilla farming live stream. For those of y'all want to check it out, I want to say it's episode 111, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm not sure. It could be that, but that was the one, Mike.
Yeah, but more a real world aspect. So I took that actual live stream and put it into action.
Yeah,
like the actual levees in Mississippi where I live at, along the actual I wouldn't call it coastline, but the river line of the actual Mississippi Delta.
Mm-hmm.
You can put actual container solar growth houses throughout the whole nearly 100-mile place and provide nearly free food to people in that area. And also you could provide the actual power for those actual grids also in that area that not only grow food, but can actually feed actual power back into the actual grid for the state. Like that's what I've been working on for the past like 6 or 7 years. So yes, it is very viable. And since the home state I'm from is based on the actual state owning the power system versus a Colorado that has like a private power structure, it works in both places because in both places they're still trying to save money and provide the same product. Colorado, they're trying to save money and provide the same product. In Mississippi, they're trying to save money because they're the one actually producing the actual energy itself. So if you can provide a whole bunch of nonprofit type of organizations when it comes to food and power and everything else. And we're trying to like shoehorn in internet service along with this type of stuff as minimum needs for the actual community itself. It provides on people's laptops and actual tablets along with that. Those are the things that's just going to be a good idea overall. So if it works for one thing, you can shoehorn in a whole bunch of other things and still be able to build the infrastructure for that and be able to own it and still be able to have them pay you for it.
Yeah.
After it's all completed.
Yeah, let me move on to the next item on the docket. This is from CGTN Africa. Tech Center in Somalia connects graduates with potential employees. I think this is really dope and aligns with the Brain Trust because one of the actual founders is actually Somali himself. So shout out to Anti-Gravity. Let me play this clip real quick.
For 20,000 of the country's young people graduate from universities, but less than a third of those get employed amidst a shortage of job placements both in the public and the private sectors. On Grassroots tonight, Mohammed Kahir explores what one university-based innovation center in Mogadishu is doing to address this problem.
Somali universities churn out about 22,000 graduates every year, but only 30% manage to secure employment. CIMAC Innovation Lab is a university-based center that was established 4 years ago in response to the challenges of unemployment in the Horn of African nation. The center trains and connects young unemployed people to prepare them for the job market.
We have attracted over 12,000 applications, and that shows you the number of youth that need support here. We have trained over 1,400 of them due to the capacity we have here. We have incubated over 34 exactly startups, of which 18 of them are now employing at least one more person. Our startups have also raised over $300,000 and again, also we have our own microfinance program whereby we connect the youth who have viable ideas to the bank we have.
Some of the innovations developed at this center are already changing lives in the country that needs more tech-based solutions to deal with various challenges.
Innovators come here with ideas and go out with practical, tangible work experience. We have implemented more than 20 projects in this Innovation Fab Lab, ranging from medicine to artificial intelligence, as well as robotics and Internet of Things. Most interesting is an app that connects emergency health patients battling terminal illnesses with doctors.
More than 1,400 graduates trained at the center so far have managed to create employment opportunities for themselves. Ayan Ahmed is a former graduate from the CIMAD iLab and now runs her own digital service provision firm.
While taking advantage of the skills development gained here, I established my own firm, which provides digital services such as web design, branding, and social media marketing. And I'm now providing employment for 3 people.
There are a lot of challenges related to property development in Mogadishu regarding rental issues. We have developed an application that connects property developers and renters at the comfort of their homes using their handset devices.
Despite its limited facilities, CIMAC Innovation Lab is working hard to accommodate young innovators with brilliant ideas.
This NAP space is meant to boost the productivity of the innovators when they are tired and exhausted, and of course, to keep them safe from the unpredictable security happenings in Mogadishu. Mohammed Kahir, CGTN Mogadishu, Somalia.
So there you have it, man. That's the power of, innovation labs. That's what goes on in these incubators that I've always, and what we've always talked about here, that when you talk about rebuilding communities and whatnot, that is the starting point, okay? Now it needs more funding, but that's the starting point. But even with the little bit that they have, they're actually able to develop applications. There's a lot of feedback coming from somebody on the panel. I don't know who it is.
Not me.
Yes, complex. And so you hear them creating applications. You hear them, engaging in the development of medicine and research and development. These sort of things can take place in, just about every African country, every African city, every Black community across America. These sort of things are capable of being done if you actually organize and do something at the ground level. Got to put in work on the ground.
Hey, Mike, am I coming through okay?
Yeah, you're okay now.
Okay. I don't know what the hell's going on here. It's interesting that, a point just to follow up on what you just said, even with the little resources, dude, she spun up a web development and marketing company and employs 3 people. Imagine that.
Yeah. I mean, you had people in the space saying that, the literacy rate is just so low. And I'm saying, is it really? Is the literacy rate low? Yeah.
I mean, it's not a literacy rate issue. It's an activity rate issue. And it's always been an activity rate issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could go over there, contact people, get things going and moving on the actual ground, and things are not a problem. I walk in with resources. I walk in with things to do, plans to actually do things. You can actually get things done. But when they actually don't want to even deal with or even talk to people who are not doing things. And they don't care about that. It's like very small, few people here who want to actually do things. They set the actual society up to where, because they have the same problems in their own country. So over 30 years, they've seen what happened when non-productive people or warlord type mentality take over the actual country. This is why they can get a whole community on quote unquote code, because they don't have comedians in their community. They don't have.
Well, you heard Mike V even tell you one of the founding members is Somali. So there you go, right?
Yeah.
Correct. But you have to understand that most of these people here, they want to do business with people who don't care about outcomes. Over there, they're all about outcomes before they even care about the people who they do business with, regardless of how they look. There's tons of Chinese people in these actual places that they do business with. Are they out there on the forefront racially? No. Are they behind the scenes actually doing stuff to help? Yes. And that's what happens when you actually want to move toward a specific outcome for everybody else in the so-called community. It works differently when you are in a community that cares about outcome versus a community that don't. So, thanks.
What were you going to say, Complex?
Oh, no, you got it. Go ahead.
All right, let's move on to the next item on the docket. This is from WION, Africa's space venture.
Haven't heard that before, but it seems it is going to be a term that we'll be getting used to in the near future. Did you know that South Africa, Angola, and Algeria have a satellite in space, and now Kenya has entered the race with the blasting off of its Taifa 1 or One Nation rocket? WION spoke exclusively to the engineer at the Kenya Space Agency. His name is Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Nyawede, on what other African countries need to do to better their space exploration capabilities. Watch this next report.
3, 2, 1, ignition, engines full power, and liftoff of Transporter 7. Go Falcon, go Transporter.
Kenya's first operational satellite is launched into orbit by a SpaceX rocket called Taifa 1 or Nation 1. The satellite was designed and developed by a team of Kenyan researchers. The space agency says the satellite was put together with the help of Bulgarian aerospace company Indurosat at a cost of 50 million Kenyan shillings or approximately $372,000 over 2 years. The agency says it will operate for 5 years and then decay in over 20 years, entering the atmosphere and burning out.
Okay, the main challenge we faced was lack of facilities locally to develop the systems, because this requires a clean room facilities, it requires manufacturing, assembly, and facilities. Currently, we don't have in Kenya. And then there's also arising from the COVID-19 pandemic, a shortage of electronic components. This delayed the project timeline. But overall, budget constraints limited us to the type of mission to develop.
21 years after the first African satellite, Sunsat-1, was launched into space by South Africa in 1999, the industry has accelerated with hundreds of millions of dollars investment into it. The last 7 years have been very successful for the African space scene. A total of 20 launches have taken place since 2016, totaling 41 satellites being sent into space. Egypt leads the way with 9 launch satellites, followed by South Africa with 8, Algeria with 7, Nigeria with 6, and Morocco with 3. Ghana, Sudan, Ethiopia, Angola, Kenya, Rwanda, and Mauritius complete the list.
Okay, the aspirations in space exploration vary from national prestige to scientific knowledge and advancing technological capability. And for Africa, I believe with the current priorities now being on food security, natural resources monitoring, meteorology, disaster risk mitigation, and I'll call it communications, this would now be the priority focus areas.
In January 2016, African heads of states and governments adopted the Africa Space Policy and Strategy to facilitate growth and development across the continent using space science and technology. The African Space Policy and Strategy promises to initiate space capabilities on Earth observation systems, navigation and positioning, satellite communication, and space science and exploration. Some African countries have also developed national space policies and strategies. In some countries, academic programs have also commenced in areas such as astronomy, remote sensing, space weather, and satellite communication.
We are creating awareness, policymakers, academia, to the public on the benefits of space. This now will enable us now, one, get support for more funding, and two, sensitize the public to support these programs, because without public support, funding is usually a challenge for most countries. So for Kenya Space Agency, we are looking at increasing our investment in space, both for the country and for the region, and I believe there's a greater benefit for us.
But the challenge is that there are few jobs for the graduates. Africa eventually loses them to countries where their knowledge and skills are better used. Critics say it is key that African countries continue to increase their investment in the space sector. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
So, this is something that we have been covering for a while now, that the African space race was picking up. That's one of the reasons why even we have a space and technology live stream, was because we wanted to focus more on Black people's contribution and involvement and engagement in the space exploration. And now you're starting to see that many African countries are investing into this. Many Africans are getting involved in this. And there was a lot of Black people in America who helped develop the James Webb Telescope that's up there now, the new telescope that eclipses the Hubble. And so we know that this can be done. It's not a matter of impossibility that Black people can be involved in these sort of industries. And so I think this is a good move. Egypt and South Africa leading the way with mad satellites, 9 and 8, and the rest of the other countries have 1 and 2Zs and 3Zs. And so things can be done if folks really want to get involved. You just have to first start with the ground level of knowledge. You need a knowledge-based community, and then you can start working from there.
Hey, Mike, am I coming in okay? I just want to keep making sure there's no static.
Yep.
All right. Okay. I think what we're starting to find also, right, and this has been a theme of this channel since its inception, the fourth industrialization of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When we're talking about the drones, the application of drones, we're talking about mining and things of that sort, right? I don't know of too many satellites in countries that have the jurisdiction to float satellites over Africa, at least to their knowledge anyway, right? They own their own airspace. See, so this is the burgeoning era of them looking to own their own airspaces, so much so to the extent that we're now talking about full-on space exploration, collaborating with other nations, signing accords and pacts and stuff like that. It lets you know that they're being super serious.
Is it me or is it Complex having a lot of feedback?
No, that was a phone ringing in his background. Wasn't me. No, man, we just keep going. Relax here, man. But just keep going. Just keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. If you don't have the latest Zoom client, then that's probably going to be an issue for you.
No, man, just keep going with the lecture, man. Just keep going.
Yeah. All right. Nagone, what's going on, bro? Do you have anything you want to add to this?
Oh, no, I just was taking a look and just listening to a lot of stuff that we've talked about on the Brain Trust previously. So I was just looking, I was just listening to a lot of stuff you're talking about because quite frankly, we did talk about this on the Brain Trust over the last couple of years. We're going back 3 years or so forth when we've talked about that. So we were looking at the strategic role of small satellites and the countries that are involved and the development that's going on there. And I think isn't the National Space Research and Development Agency it's in Nigeria? Am I correct?
I think Nigeria has their own agency in that regard. Yeah, but go ahead.
No, I thought it was in Garki. I think it was in Nigeria. That's what I was thinking. So I just know that Nigeria is playing a front role, but that development that's actually going on with respect to space agencies and development and satellites and all that's going on in Africa is actually rapidly growing. So this is a great live stream to continue on because I don't think a lot of information is out there. I just don't think that information is out there, and we're pretty clueless. A lot of us are clueless, and this is very important to know because it's going to have a big effect for us here in in Afro-America as well. To get involved in the space programs that are happening in Africa, that's a hand and a reach out for us as well. So hopefully we can kind of join that up and see how that could work synergistically for us. But anyway, Mike, go ahead. That's it. That's all I have to say.
No, that's actually a great point. A way that HBCUs and PBIs, predominantly Black institutions, can work with folks on the continent and in the Caribbean on space exploration, in joint ventures and collaboration. I think that's actually a really good point because it reduces your CapEx, right? Your capital expenditures. And now what you have here is more brain power at the ground level, and then you're also cultivating more talent. That's actually a really good point, Nagone. And I think that when we have these conversations, it's not in a vacuum, right? You're trying to tickle or massage the prospects of actually getting something done. And that is probably the best way to do it. And this is probably how you would actually get the administration, the federal government, to put more money into community colleges, put more money into vocational schooling, because what Kenya did with that CubeSat is designed to last for 5 years. It probably could last a lot longer, but the estimated time is 5 years, and what they spent was like $372,000 on it. I'm pretty sure that inflation swallowed that bill up. But the point of the matter here is that they were capable of designing their own satellite and actually getting it up off the ground. It's a cube satellite. It's like the size of a loaf of bread, right? What we're talking about is not something that's massive. We're not talking about you need a 18-wheeler to move this. You can move this with a Subaru Outback, right? And so these things are possible. These things are very much possible. You can do these type of things when you have organization on the ground in collaboration at work.
With a specific outcome in mind.
Yeah.
Like you could do that with a specific, like this is why I have to get all the way the hell up off of YouTube, because the things that I'm trying to do, they're like, this is great, but why are you here? Type thing. Yeah. And it's like, dude, you don't really understand. You don't need a whole country full of educated people to get this stuff off the ground.
Right.
And that's a fact.
And you don't even need millions of dollars to get this stuff off the ground. Like NASA has to have legacy projects to get their actual kids in their actual programs to get this stuff to even kind of sort of work. These people are building stuff from the ground up. Like you said, loaf of bread size thing that they're putting into space and they're getting results out of it. Us, we have to fund the whole infrastructure based off the last generation that needs to retire. They don't have to do that in other places. Like you can just create kids on a one-to-one basis that is actually with the information that need to go forward. Here we have a whole bunch of people that are being created in environments that schools can't even teach how to do the minimum level of math, and they have to do it for it. I think it's a great idea. So, right.
All right. Next item on the docket is from Clean Technica. Africa's EV road back to Eden. Let me blow this up a little. The African continent is bearing the brunt of climate change-induced disasters. We see it on the news most nights. Here are some of the attempts to decarbonize the transport sector in these emerging economies as chronicled by Africa 21. 6 electric tricycles were recently delivered to health centers in 5 Tunisian cities. The initiative is co-founded by the German Agency for International Cooperation. The tricycles were manufactured and delivered by Baku Motors, a German-Tunisian mobility startup. Tunisia aims to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 46%. That's immense. Quote, in the medium term, these tricycles will bring basic health services closer to people with reduced mobility or to people living far from the health centers of our 6 partner municipalities, says Baku Motors. Baku Motors was created in 2021 by engineer Barbaker Siala. Each tricycle has a 4,000-watt motor and an electric battery with a range of 200 kilometers per charge. The tricycles can be charged from solar panels or a domestic socket. A year ago, Baku Motors announced the local manufacture of a range of 70 tricycles and electric bicycles at a unit price of 12,000 dinars or 3,700 euros, excluding taxes. Baku plans to market the tricycles in Nigeria next year to help improve ecologically sustainable mobility. The intersectoral Professional Association for Electric Mobility of Morocco expects the deployment of 2,500 new charging stations for electric vehicles by 2026. The import of EVs is expected to surge in the next few years. APIME will be ready with chargers in Casablanca, Tangier, and the country's capital, Rabat. Morocco aims to be an example for the rest of Africa to follow. Quote, as a result, the share of electric vehicles imported into Morocco will increase. This means that car importers must adapt to the trend and increase demands for green mobility and energy, explains Omar Magoul. According to the OECD, the transport sector generates 40% of the CO2 emissions within the Cherifin Kingdom. The APIME initiative aims to drastically reduce air pollution. A few months ago, Moroccan company Vital Auto Parts, which specializes in the import and distribution of automotive equipment, signed an agreement with Spanish supplier Wallbox Chargers to market 50 charging stations for electric vehicles in the North African Kingdom. These installations will be accompanied by digital solutions, including mobile application for monitoring the consumption data of electric vehicle drivers. Spiral, an Indian startup, will build a new assembly plant in Uganda at a cost of $200 million. The startup plans to deploy 140,000 electric motorcycles and 3,000 battery exchange stations in the capital, Kampala, as a start at displacing the 460,000 ICE vehicles on the road. The motorcycles will be given out free of charge to replace petrol bodas, motorcycle taxi operators. Spiral expects to earn revenue on charging and battery swapping. The initiative is co-founded by the African Fund for Transformation and Industrialization, ATIF, with Spiral receiving $50 million in funding. Quote, this partnership, the first of its kind between an African government and a green mobility company on the continent, will create more than 9,000 jobs and promote made in Uganda with affordable costs for drivers who will be able to save up to 40%, says Spiral. 4,500 electric motorcycles were distributed by Spiral in Benin, Rwanda, and Togo in 2022. The company currently operates 250 battery swapping stations in these countries, which are responsible for more than 130,000 swaps and have powered over 22 million kilometers of travel so far. I mean, Complex has talked about ad nauseum micromobility, and here you have, in this article, they're saying that this is the first time an African country has ever done something like this with an external partner, okay? And what we're seeing, at least in this space, is a lot of pessimism about whether or not this is the viable market. The article is telling you that it's a viable market. It's a $30 billion market on top of that. And so when you hear Complex really talk about micromobility, he's not just saying this as a hobby, he's saying this as a business venture. This is an emerging market. And so let me finish this article real quick. BMW's Mini has teamed with Red Bull of Australia to install solar-powered car charger in Cape Town, South Africa. Both companies are doing this to satisfy their CSR, corporate social responsibility requirements. It is hoped that this will accelerate green mobility and hence improve air quality. Quote, we are motivated by the potential for creative ways to play our part in protecting the planet. With the first standalone public solar charging unit in Cape Town, in collaboration with Red Bull, we are showing our commitment to sustainable energy solutions, says Sean Williams, Mini South Africa's director. So we've been talking about this for a while now, that electric vehicles, micromobility, two-wheel, one-wheel, and three-wheel vehicles are probably going to make up a lot of the entry points and fill this niche that that allows Black people to get involved in the electric vehicle sector. Okay. Complex, you have anything you want to add to this?
No, but this is the reason why people need to be diversified in the actual future point of where they're actually moving. So that way we could be able to understand like where people need to be actually headed. Because there's a lot of money being spent in Colorado on these actual programs. In most liberal cities in the United States on these actual programs. But you have to be there and actually in the actual business to be able to cash in on the money that's actually being spent on these programs. And if you're not and trying to uphold something that doesn't need to be upheld, you're going to be left behind. But go ahead, man.
All right. All right, next item on the docket and the last one. This is from MIT. Engineering for Social Impact, environmental engineering major Ronako Gentles seeks to lead projects that increase harmony between society and the environment. A desire to make meaningful contributions to society has influenced Runako Gentle's path in life. Gentles grew up in Jamaica with a supportive extended family that instilled in him his connections to his faith and his aspirations to aim for greatness. Quote, while growing up, I was encouraged to live a life that could potentially bring about major positive changes in my family and many other people's lives, says the MIT junior. One of those pathways his parents encourage is pursuing excellence in academics. Gentles attended Campion College, a Jesuit high school in Jamaica for academically high achieving students. Gentles was valedictorian and even won an award for the member of the valedictory class who most closely resembles the ideal of intellectual competence, openness to growth, and commitment to social justice. Although he did well in all subjects, he naturally gravitated towards biology and chemistry. Quote, there are certain subjects people just take sense of material much faster. In high school, biology and chemistry were those subjects for me, he says. His love of learning often surprised friends and classmates when he could recall science concepts and definitions years later. For several years, Gentles wanted to pursue the field of medicine. He remembers becoming more excited about the career of a surgeon after reading a book on the story of retired neurosurgeon Ben Carson. Interesting. During his advanced studies at Campion, he attended a career event and met with a neurosurgeon who invited him and other classmates to watch a surgical procedure. Gentles had the unique learning experience to observe a spinal operation. Around that same time, another learning opportunity presented itself. His biology teacher recommended he apply to a Caribbean Science Foundation initiative called Student Program for Innovation, Science, and Engineering, SPICE, to explore careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. The intensive residential summer program for Caribbean students is modeled after the minority introduction to engineering and students, sorry. Sorry, let me start over again. His biology teacher recommended he apply to a Caribbean Science Foundation initiative called Student Program for Innovation, Science, and Engineering, SPICE, to explore careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. The intensive residential summer program for Caribbean students is modeled after the minority introduction to engineering and science, MITES program at MIT. Cardinal Ward, a professor of electrical engineering at MIT, who is also from the Caribbean, serves as the faculty director for both MITES and SPICE. The program was Gentle's first major exposure to engineering. Quote, I felt like I was in my first year of college at SPICE. It was an amazing experience, and it helped me realize the opportunities that an engineering career path offers, Gentle says. He excelled in the SPICE program, even winning one of the program's highest honors for demonstrating overall excellence in leadership. SPICE was profoundly impactful to Gentles, and he decided to pursue engineering at MIT. While further exploring his engineering interest before his first year at MIT, he remembers reading an article that piqued his interest in the industry, in industry sectors that met his basic human and societal needs. Quote, I started thinking more about engineering and ethics, says Gentles. He wanted to spend his time learning how to use science and engineering to make meaningful change in society. Quote, I think back to wanting to be a doctor for many years to help sick people, but I took it a step further. I wanted to get closer to addressing some of the root causes of death, illness, and the poor quality of life for billions of people. He says of his decision to pursue a degree in civil and environmental engineering. Gentle spent his first semester at MIT working as a remote student when the COVID pandemic shut down in-person learning. He participated in 1097 introduction to civil and environmental engineering research during the January independent activities period, in which undergraduates work one-on-one with graduate students or postdoc mentors on research projects that align with their interests. Gentles worked in the lab of Ruben Jawan's, exploring the use of machine learning to analyze earthquake data to determine whether different geological faults in Puerto Rico resulted in distinguishable earthquake clusters. He joined the lab of Desiree Plata in the summer of his sophomore year on another undergraduate research opportunity, Europe project, analyzing diesel range organic compounds in water samples collected from shallow groundwater sources near hydraulic fracking sites in West Virginia. The experience even led Gentles to be a co-author in his graduate student mentor's abstract proposal for the American Geophysical Union Fall Meeting 2022 conference. Gentle says he found the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering in a place for him to have a big picture mindset of thinking about how technology is going to affect the environment, which ultimately affects society. Choosing the department was not just about gaining technical knowledge that most interested me. I wanted to be in a space where I could significantly develop my mindset of using innovation to bring more harmony between society and environment, says Gentles. Outside of the classroom, learning acoustic guitar is a passion for Gentles. He plays at social events for Crew, a Christian community at MIT where he serves as a team leader. He credits Crew with helping him feel connected to a lot of different people, even outside of MIT. He's also a member of the Bernard M. Gordon MIT Engineering Leadership Program, which helps undergraduates gain and hone leadership skills to prepare them for careers in engineering. After learning and exploring more Europe's and classes in civil and environmental engineering, he aspires to hold a position of leadership where he can use his environmental knowledge to impact human lives. Quote, mitigating environmental issues can sometimes be a complicated endeavor involving many stakeholders, Gentle says. We need more bright minds to be thinking of creative ways to address these pressing problems. We need more leaders helping to make society more harmonious with our planet. I think that this brother is going to be the future of Black society going forward. His thinking, his ability to adapt, and his overall framework and focus, I think that is all of the hallmarks of a social innovator. Okay. That being said, Nagon, what do you have to add to this?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I was just calling something else here real quick. But as far as what you've read, this is, I don't know. It's really not a lot else. It's showing you actually what's going on here. You're actually correct. This is going to be this is exactly how things are going. This guy is going to be a very strong leader, another strong innovator. The only thing you have to do is continue to add on to the bottom line here, add on to the base here. This is wow. This is pretty sharp. My God, I don't know. This is a great article. This is insane. Awesome.
All right, man.
Awesome. Sorry.
Complex, you have anything you want to add? All right.
Can Complex hear us?
I don't know. Yeah, I have to move on to the next item. Yeah, but you need people like this brother in these environments to actually foster that level of change that is so desperately needed. You really can't move forward without these technocratic people like him. And he's not looking for a big payday. He's looking to actually create societal transformation. That's the ideal of a progressive. Okay, he's leveraging technology for the improvement and transformation of society as a whole.
And we need more people working, like coming in and working with him, working alongside and working other places like this to expand, to consistently expand on this. This is where things are going. So that's why we have to keep pushing this forward. These others who were saying some other thing, I'm not even going to get into it, but we have to consistently push things like this forward. And just let's keep talking about this, Mike. You're bringing these things up, and I'm not really hearing many other people talking about this. I don't hear this being discussed hardly anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't, and that's a big part of the problem as well. This has to continue to be talked about. More has to be known about this. More people have to be aware of this, because this is the only way this is going to grow. And we have to talk about this a lot more. This has to be discussed and understood.
Yeah,
greater depth, a lot more. Anyway.
Yeah, so we discussed this last week. Shonda H actually provided this link in the chat from the last live stream. We didn't have a whole lot of time to really go through it, but we did cover the first few paragraphs as to why Black people aren't, why Black men are not really getting involved at the STEM level, how they're the other minority. And so the question here now is, based on the Pew research that this is being cited from, I want to go into it just a little bit more. We did stop off here at the rate of scientists, engineers comparatively low as professional groups that are welcoming Black people among their ranks. Let me just zoom this in a little bit. Black adults view scientists and engineers as among the least welcoming of Black colleagues across 9 professional groups evaluated in the survey. The groups most highly rated on this quality: professional athletes, followed by professional musicians. About 6 in 10 Black adults say that professional athletes are very welcoming of Black people in these jobs, while 24% say that say they are somewhat welcoming, and 12% see them as not too or not at all welcoming. A 58% majority of Black adults say that professional musicians are very welcoming of Black people in these jobs. While trailing behind evaluations of professional athletes and musicians, clergy rank relatively high among these groups. At 38% of Black adults say clergy are very welcoming to Black people in their profession, while another 39% say they are somewhat welcoming. Other professional groups are seen as considerably less welcoming. Just 17% of Black Americans see business executives as very welcoming to Black people in these jobs. 45% consider business executives are generally not too or not at all welcoming to Black people in their jobs, in these jobs. 2 in 10 say that scientists are very welcoming of Black people in these jobs. And 23% say this about engineers. Medical doctors fare only slightly better. 28% of Black adults say this group is very welcoming to Black people in medical jobs. At least 4 in 10 say each of these professional groups is somewhat welcoming to Black people in these jobs. Roughly a third say that scientists, 36%, are not too or not at all welcoming to Black people in the profession. 33% say this about engineers, and 25% say this about medical doctors. Black Americans with a postgraduate degree are less inclined to see medical doctors and engineers as very welcoming to Black colleagues. Overall, just 16% of Black adults with a postgraduate degree say that medical doctors are very welcoming to Black people, compared with 36% of Black adults with a high school degree or less education. There's a similar pattern by education and views of the openness of engineers to Black people. A majority of Black high school graduates recall a positive experience in STEM classes, but sizable shares also recall mistreatment. Personal experiences in the educational system are among the factors that can influence the decision to pursue or potentially avoid STEM degrees and jobs. On balance, Black adults with a high school degree or more education recall positive experiences more frequently than negative ones when asked to think about their most recent STEM schooling. Still, about 4 in 10 Black adults with at least a high school degree, 39%, say they have had at least one of the following negative experiences: being treated as if they couldn't understand the subject matter, or made to feel like they don't belong, or receiving repeated negative comments about their race. The survey asked those with a high school degree or more education about their experiences with STEM schooling. Most high schools require at least some science or math classes in order to graduate, although requirements for college and postgraduate degree programs are quite varied. Among Black adults who have a high school degree or more education, slightly more than 4 in 10 say that in their most recent STEM schooling, someone made them feel excited about their abilities in these subjects. 44% helped them see how these subjects could be useful for the job. 44% or encourage them to keep taking classes in these areas. 43%. So I think what I'm gathering from this for myself personally is that we live in a system that is hostile to our existence as a whole, and education could only make up for so much. I think what happens here is these perceptions also come from the dominant society that says that you're not capable of understanding or capable of comprehending, or you're not trustworthy of information as a source, as a cited source. And so therefore, the negative backlash or you become the negative recipient of some of these issues, right? I talked about this before on the older live streams from a few years ago that I was doing a PowerPoint presentation about cloud computing or something like that. I forget what it was now, but what was happening, I was demonstrating in a PowerPoint presentation that in the event of these emerging technologies and transformation, this person disagreed with what I was saying on the slide, even though I had cited the source of information coming from Microsoft. And he kept saying, I disagree. But what are you disagreeing with? Are you disagreeing with the information, or are you disagreeing with the source? Which one is it? Because all I'm doing is I'm presenting the information. And he could not really explain. This person was white. He could not really explain what he disagreed with. He just disagreed. And so what I've seen over time is that people tend to be very hostile. It starts with microaggressions, body language, the sign, the rolling of the eyes, these sort of things are the catalysts for more aggressions going forward. And so that leads to racism in the end, ultimately. But I think what the Pew research is really saying is that this is also trickling down and reverberating within the environment too, that Black people going into STEM, there tends to be some hostility towards Black people being inside these environments. No, I'm sorry, I just got distracted by one of the comments. I think that what's happening here is that overall is that what we're seeing here is that most Black people who go into STEM, there's not, the environment is not welcoming to them. Whether it's in the academy or you get into the professional corporate sector, what happens here is that there's always someone trying to discourage you by discrediting you based on your research or based on your testimony or based on your work ethic. There's always somebody there who doesn't look like you that's being hostile towards you. And there's also Black people who buy into these stereotypes that, somehow, some way, you couldn't possibly know all of this. You couldn't possibly be in cybersecurity. You couldn't possibly be in any other form of STEM. You couldn't possibly be in there. There's no way, right? And so we have talked about these sort of hostilities towards Black people, and even on the brain trust, right? In what we call the Black manosphere, there is hostility towards the Black brain trust for what we do, even though what we're doing is extremely benign. We still have people who are pushing back, oh, why are you guys reading these articles? Why are you guys talking about this stuff? We really don't need this type of stuff in this space. This is coming from Black people, okay? And so I think that there is a social norm of the underperformance of Black people, the erasure and invisibility of Black people in STEM, any of the STEM fields, whether you're talking about being a registered nurse, or you're talking about material science, or you're talking about cybersecurity, IT, renewable energies, nuclear energy, these sort of areas, these sort of hard scientists are socially constructed for white people or non-Black people. That non-Black being Indian, Pakistani, Chinese, Japanese, so on and so forth. That even that stereotype, right? That because they're from Asia, that they must be really good at math. And I can tell you right now, I talk with a lot of my Asian colleagues in the workplace, and they suck at math, right? And so, but that's the stereotype, that they are good, and so that somehow you must, they must be trustworthy of complex issues, even though they themselves can't really solve it any better than a Black person could, or an African American could. And so you do run into these sort of attitudes in the workplace like this article is referring to. And I think that it is important to understand that we have to create these sort of social spaces that are welcoming to Black people, and more importantly, Black men, because a lot of times Black men get relegated to, athletics, right? Dribbling balls and catching balls in football fields and stuff like that. That stuff makes it more difficult to pivot to the STEM field, because you're only being relegated to that one area of expertise, which is athletics. And we know that Black people are significantly better than just doing athletics and whatnot. They're capable of doing a lot more things. Historically, we know that Black people help transform Western society with their inventions. You see their inventions littered all over the United States and in most of the world right now. From slavery all the way up until this very day, Black people have had heavy contributions. The James Webb Telescope, there are at least a dozen or more Black people who helped design and engineer that telescope, that James Webb Telescope, and people don't even talk about it. And that plays a significant role. And I think that that's one of the reasons why we do what we do on the Brain Trust, is because we want to bring attention and light to Black people, and especially Black men, and affirm their place within the industry, because no one else is going to do it, especially in this space. They're not going to do it. And outside of this space, they're not doing it either. MIT has a pretty strong connection to the Black community historically because of its, its place within Boston as a whole, in the progressive nature of the campus itself, the campus program itself. What's going on, Complex? You have something you want to add?
Yeah, man, I'm back, dude. Hopefully my audio issues are okay, man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the hell's going on. Man, there's a lot to unpack what you just said there, man, because I'm a big, you already know, we're big motorsports junkies, RC car junkies, all that shit, right? You see, so I look at where we have convergences, athletics or athleticism or sport, let's just say, along with technology. Typically, you're going to get that in things like yachting, motorsport, cycling, right? Things that use machinery, right? See, so there's convergences even in the athletic realm. But we typically deal more with more of the physical sports, basketball, baseball, football, Right. You know, those kind of sports, when we don't really go into those venues of sport where there's a heavy reliance on technology. Now, if for anyone who thinks that that's not a venue where we belong, I would argue that there is a guy called Lewis Hamilton who I would say undisputedly is the greatest Formula One driver of all time. 7 world titles. He should have 8. We're not going to get into that, Mike. All I'm going to say here is that we've seen people who reflect us at the highest levels doing this. So it's not a stretch or anything. It's more of it's an interest type of thing. Like, I think that's what you were alluding to just a few minutes ago when I came back up.
Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, more so it's how the society has, you know, tried to, you know, box you in or put you in a certain place. And your place is to be less competent, you know, more ignorant, lesser developed in some ways mentally. And you're not supposed to occupy these spaces because remember, there's a certain belief that you're not you might be inferior. And that's a part of this. And there are those who try to perpetuate that. And here, with respect to to certain aspects of the Black manosphere or Black sector, you have those who think inferiorly, and they have an inferior mindset, and so they start to think about how you know, if you try to push up or trying to move, you know, you're almost getting out of your place in some ways. So you have that kind of that thought process going. So they certainly do try to pigeonhole you into a certain area, and as you break out of that, and these stereotypes or beliefs about you are not true. History is rife with that, but still, you know, you have been, you know, relegated to a certain position here in this society and culture from a certain from a perceptive level. When you start to really operate beyond that, it's a problem. Anybody who knows here, anybody who's in the tech industry, understand if you do very well, you have to do 2 or 3 times better than what's going on, you know, with the average person. You know, let's say the average Caucasoid or Asian or Middle Eastern or such. You have to do that much better to be even considered even to be equal in certain respects. And that's that's something. I was going to say that's something.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's something that we fight through. But there are those, and I'm sure there's some maybe in the chat who are in this tech industry and so forth, and other industries as well, who've seen this. Certainly on the corporate side. Whoever's got the background, you got a lot of you got a lot of feedback coming to you back coming through here. But that's a key point that I that I wanted to just bring up, because that's part of the reality that we're dealing with out here.
Let me finish reading this real quick, because I think it does lead into a lot of what we're talking about here. At the same time, smaller though still sizable shares recall mistreatment or microaggressions. We just talked about that. About 3 in 10 Black adults with a high school degree or more education say they had someone treat them as if they could not understand STEM subjects, 29%, or who made them feel they did not belong in STEM classes, 27%. 2 in 10 among this group say that someone made repeated negative comments or slights about their race or ethnicity in their most recent STEM schooling. While these attitudes offer a window into lasting memories from STEM educational experiences, their survey questions do not capture the full context of experiences with teachers, counselors, fellow students, and others in these settings. And the findings do not speak to the frequency, whether isolated or repeated in nature, or of positive and negative experiences in STEM education. U.S. adults who have graduated from high school also report a mix of positive and negative experiences in STEM classes. Among high school graduates, similar shares of Black adults, 58%, and U.S. adults, 59%, say they had at least one of these 3 positive experiences in their STEM schooling. A third of all high school graduates say they had at least one of these negative experiences. Black college graduates who are currently working in STEM jobs stand out from college graduates and other occupations when it comes to their educational experiences. Overall, 69% of Black college graduates working in a STEM job say that someone made them feel excited about their abilities in STEM subjects. And 68% say someone helped them see the relevance of these fields for their job or career in their most recent school experiences. Roughly 6 in 10, 59% say that someone encouraged them to keep taking more classes in these subjects. Taken together, 81% of Black college graduates working in STEM fields say they had at least one of these positive experiences. By comparison, Black college graduates working in other kinds of jobs are far less likely to recall positive experiences in STEM classes. The share of Black STEM workers with a college degree or more education who recall a positive experience in their most recent STEM schooling is about the same as the share of all college graduates working in STEM who say this, 81% versus 82%. However, a larger majority of college graduate STEM workers in the general population say that someone encouraged them to keep taking classes in these subjects, 68% with 58% of Black STEM workers. A sizable share of Black college graduates in the workforce today recall some kind of mistreatment or microaggression in their STEM schooling as well. Among those working in a STEM job, 34% say that someone treated them as if they could not understand a subject, could not understand a STEM subject, and the same share, 34% says someone made them feel they didn't belong in these classes. This is very interesting. But we got Dr. Dunbar on here. What's going on? What do you have on this today?
Hey, what's going on, fellas? I'm driving. It's raining here, so hopefully you guys can hear me.
Yes,
okay?
sir.
Salute, Dr. Dunbar. Salute.
Yeah, you sound better than I do, apparently.
Okay. Yeah, I need to get over here with you guys a little bit more. I just happened to catch it. Man, tomorrow said you need to get your butt up here. So, wow, there's a lot here. And with this paper saying, in which you said, like, I can attest to all that. I live in Washington, D.C. right now, and I tell the story all the time. A lot of the professionals here, I mean, because the government's here, so you have professionals of all kinds here. And a lot of elite professionals, and a lot of them tell me, especially when I would go do career day in Prince George's County, a lot of them would tell me, you're the first Black scientist I've ever met. So I think, and also other government workers, I want to reemphasize, other government workers have told me that you're the first Black scientist I've ever met. And that's kind of staggering. So I think part of the problem historically with us is there aren't enough so that young people know that we exist. Going back to what you said about the pushback you get in the sphere, that I don't know what to make of that. Is that a distrust of information? I don't know. I think culturally they're just we have a history of doing stuff, but I think media messaging is intentional and imaging is intentional, and they don't highlight our STEM practitioners. We have a lot of Black astronauts, we have a lot of Black chemists and physicists, and they're there, that they're just not highlighted. What I would say, I'm just rambling stuff.
No, Dr. Dunbar, I have a question. Do you think it's intimidation?
Intimidation when Mike B presents information or whomever?
No, I think the general sort of the general topic or the subject matter, right, and the focalization on it, right? Because what then happens here is that it's not a casual pursuit. It's more or less something that we internalize as a function.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So that would mean that we would have to then take certain subject matters with a heightened level of seriousness, right?
Yes.
What would you, or what's your thoughts on that?
So you're talking about STEM subject matters.
Yeah. I mean, like what you, when I think Mike, or I think the question was, what's the, like, especially when it comes to the manosphere, you know, what I'll find, and this is something that we've use case this, right? Some people might think that we're just being abrasive and brolic when we ask people to hit the link, right? But here's the thing, right? What we're trying to do is see, we're trying to bump information against, say, some information that you've encountered elsewhere, right? See, so if that's not the case, then it really then becomes an issue or a matter of learning and understanding the sciences, learning the mathematics, you know, becoming more proficient in reading, all of these things that per talking points in the manosphere, young Black boys are plagued with, right? Low reading levels, low graduation levels, right? You know, no focalization in the STEM fields. We keep hearing it over and over and over again. And then so when Mike asked the question, well, you know, since you have spaces that are focalized on it, where's everybody at? And so I'm saying, is it an intimidation thing, or what are your thoughts?
Well, so complex. So I think that the reading piece. Now, mind you, I did go to an HBCU. It wasn't one of the flagship HBCUs. I did stay on the science track, but I did have. There was a small handful of us who were willing to do the work and who graduated and who went on to something medical or scientific. Then there was another pool who either didn't want to do it or resisted the teaching. And I remember one of my professors was really, really adamant about us learning how to read and write. And there was pushback back then by some of the students. And a lot of, for who our HBCU was bringing at that time, a lot of the students could not write proficiently. But going back to your question, I think once you start to peel back, for example, the Black boys reading level, now you're getting to root cause analysis and why is that happening and who's responsible for it. People might not want to talk about that. I mean, I don't see why in the spirit guys wouldn't want to talk about it, because they kind of talk about it already.
You said the root cause of where that low reading level stuff comes from?
Yeah.
Okay. I know. I understand that, because that's been a talking point for quite some time in all actuality. You see, I guess my question or issue, or it's a little bit of both, right, is that then let's just say alternatives spin up, right? Because look, at the end of the day, that's something that's going to be a conversation. If we were to fast forward 5 years into the future, it's still going to be a conversation, right?
Yeah.
What say you about what is to be done in the interim, right? Now, I look at things like doing the sim racing thing as something to attract. It's racing, it's fun, it gets the blood pumping, but then there's a lot of STEM behind it. And there's a bait. And so that's something like a platform like this will throw out there as a solution measure, right? Versus having to say, let's comb down to the core of what it is that we already know what's going on. It's been discussed ad nauseum. And so this is what I'm proposing here. I'm suggesting that since there's alternatives on the table, now there's a bit of an intimidation factor at play, because now you got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that's what I think. And I think that's what's going on with the manosphere. And I think that is what a lot of the issues and all that. I just really think there's a lot of dudes that just aren't active like that. I'm sorry.
Well,
and I'm not saying that you were suggesting. I'm just saying that, you know what I mean?
Well, I think there's a lot of pontification amongst Black men in the space, because a lot of them have not reached that threshold themselves in these areas. You know, Dr. Dunbar, myself, We're both STEM graduates ourselves, so we kind of been through that. You know, we kind of been through the the track to get to where we need to be. But a lot of these other guys have not really been there yet. Most of them have not actually gone through the ranks themselves. They have not even stepped in the academy at all. And so I think what happens in this space is that it sounds good to talk about it, but to actually be about it is a whole different conversation.
Right, Mike.
If you keep having these sort of conversations, what it does is squeezes a lot of these guys out of the conversation themselves. They can't participate in it because there is no place for pontification anymore. Once you get to this level, you have to actually be right. You have to get it right. And so there has to be some practicality behind it. Go ahead, Dr. Dunbar, please.
Well, you know, Mike, as you were talking, I was thinking in our slice of pie in this country, one of my concerns is we're as a people, we're just not interested in science. We're not interested in empiricism and technology, and amongst our people, unfortunately, it's just not popular. So for the things we're interested in, I think it just goes over a lot of people's heads.
Yeah.
I don't know how to change that. I don't know how to change it. I mean, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we're into music and celebrity gossip, politics, those kinds of things. I don't know. Surface level things. And so I honestly think a lot of these topics honestly go over a lot of people's heads, and that's probably why you might get pushed back, and why you have to be creative about discussing science in the sphere and on this platform in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me finish reading this article because I think it's really on point, and I just want to make sure I finish up these last paragraphs. These findings are suggestive of potential deterrents Black adults may face in pursuing training in science or allied fields. Ebony McGee, a scholar focused on diversity in STEM higher education, finds that Black people pursuing a higher degree in a career in science or another STEM field may face an array of obstacles such as stereotyping and implicit biases. The patterns here are also in line with a 2017 Center survey, which included a large sample of STEM workers. In that survey, Black STEM workers were particularly likely to report race-related slights or other inequities on the job. In all, 62% of Black STEM workers said they had experienced at least one of 8 specific forms of discrimination because of their race or ethnicity. This is greater than the shares of Black workers in non-STEM jobs, 50%, who reported the same and far greater than the shares of STEM workers of other racial and ethnic backgrounds who said they experienced this. In the new survey, levels of educational attainment are also associated with Black people's recollections of positive and negative experiences with STEM schooling. Though not necessarily a casual effect, Black representation among a person's high school teachers is associated with more positive experiences with STEM schooling. Among Black adults with a high school degree or more education, 49% say they had at least one same-race high school teacher in a science, technology, engineering, or math class. Those who did are more likely to recall positive experiences in their STEM schooling. For example, 52% of those who had a Black high school STEM teacher say that they have had someone encourage them to keep taking STEM classes, compared with 34% of those who did not have a STEM high school teacher who was Black. Both groups are about equally likely to report negative experiences in STEM schooling. See appendix for more details. And so I've had these experiences myself. I think what's happening here is that, I think what's happening here is that we don't have enough Black teachers to create the reinforcement at the academy level, especially at the K-12 level. And we don't have enough representation of Black people in the STEM field who come back with their, to create the reinforcement in these areas. And so I definitely think that there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I do think that, programs like the Hidden Genius Project, Black Boys Code, Black Boy Joy, these sort of NSBE. I think NSBE is another great one. I'm an actual registered member myself. And so I think that you need more people, more Black people to be ubiquitous in these areas so that they see this representation. Last week, we talked about going inside Micro Center, and when you look at the rafters, they have portraits explaining all of the complex. You have a lot of feedback. They have portraits showing the person, the founders of said technology all throughout the store. You will not see one Black person in there, okay? There's not one Black person up there. And so I think that when it comes to Black representation, artwork plays a significant role. When you start talking about STEAM, and when you start talking about STEAM, you start talking about hip hop as a science. We talked about hip hop as a science. How does hip hop and STEM work together or coalesce with each other as art form and technology? We should look at it as Afrofuturism as well. And so there's other areas that we can actually create visibility without actually putting people physically in these areas, because sometimes people just don't know each other. What does Dr. Dunbar really look like? Going into like a Black community in West Virginia, if there even is one, right? Or even New Hampshire for that matter. I think that there needs to be some kind of template of how to create representation in these areas so that you can create the positive feedback and reinforcement to actually matriculate more graduates in STEM, because we know that during the pandemic, I think we covered this about a year or so ago, but Black males were some of the highest dropout rates during the pandemic, especially when it came to STEM, at something like 75% for various reasons. And so I think this article is really, from Pew Research, is really highlighting this, but you also see that reflected that most Black males don't get out of their first or second year of STEM if they don't get this sort of positive feedback and reinforcement. They kind of just drop out. Despite the fact that they had the grades to get in, if they don't get the support, they just kind of burn out. And so platforms like NSBE, platforms like, like what they created at Virginia Tech, I think these are actually good platforms to work with, good starting points. Let me see if I can complete this real quick. I know Dr. Dunbar had to step away. Let me just go through this real quick. Half or more Black Americans see mentors as especially influential to how many young Black people pursue STEM degrees. We just got finished talking about that. Black Americans see a variety of factors behind the limited number of young people pursuing STEM college degrees. Half of Black adults say the lack of mentor or other adult encouraging young people to pursue these fields is a major deterrent, while a third consider this a minor reason why more young Black people don't pursue college degrees in STEM. The same share, 50%, says lack of access to quality education is also a major reason that more young people do not pursue STEM degrees. Note that these questions reference young people generally without specifying their race or ethnicity. In addition, 45% of Black adults say a major difficulty comes from young people thinking that STEM subjects are too hard, and 39% say disinterest in these subjects is a major reason behind STEM enrollment figures for young adults. This is not just a gender issue, right? A lot of times you have these platforms like Black Girls Code and Black Girl Magic, because girls are somehow discriminated against. This also impacts Black men too, or Black boys for that matter, right? And so you can't just say it's a gender issue. It's both, right? It's both. Everybody is impacted by this across the board. About 3 in 10 Black adults, 31%, think young people not seeing the usefulness of these subjects for their careers is a major reason many young adults don't pursue college-level STEM degrees. Another 41% say this is a minor reason. Views among Black adults on these questions are generally similar to those of the overall U.S. population. However, all U.S. adults place somewhat greater emphasis on the difficulty of the subject matter as a major reason for why more young people do not pursue STEM college degrees. Black, along with Hispanic students, have long been underrepresented in STEM degree programs compared with the share earning degrees in other fields. According to the recent data from the U.S. Department of Education, Black students earned no more than 9% of the STEM degrees awarded in 2018 across the bachelor's, master's, and doctoral levels, figures that have changed little since 2010. Black adults with higher levels of education are particularly likely to point to the absence of a mentor and inaccessibility of quality education as a major reasons more people don't pursue STEM college degrees. Majorities of Black adults with a postgraduate, 65%, or a college, 62% degree, say that the lack of a mentor or other adult encouraging young people is a major reason behind this pattern. About 6 in 10 of Black adults with a postgraduate degree and 64% of those with a college degree say that the lack of access to quality education is a major reason young people do not pursue STEM degrees in college. So I think the Pew Research is really pointing to where we have been discussing this for a very long time, and you hear it in the Black manosphere a lot, and I'm picking on the Black manosphere because that's the space that we're in. And what I hear is, a lot of times over the last few years is that, man, I ain't mentoring nobody's kids, man. I ain't doing nothing, man. You can't make me do nothing. These guys really believe that a community can function without their participation, but they can actually extract all of the benefits and resources from it while, living on their own island. They really believe in this type of stuff. And so you can't really build community with people who think like this, especially Black men who are kind of wayward in their way of thinking. They're not really contributors.
Hey, Mike, am I coming across okay?
It's still static and
shit. Okay, go ahead, go on.
I just want to say it's a Black woman thing. The Black manager, it's a Black woman thing. So, so here it's really more about the Black woman and anything that will, that really has to do with her. It's kind of cut that back to the fat meat, if you will. So that's a major part of what we're dealing with here. With respect to that, F them kids and everything else like that is, I'm not dealing with, with this Black woman and anything else that has to deal with it. But yet, you see in high school, especially when you do get involved in sports and these kind of things, you see people getting involved, certainly with teaching these kids basketball, teaching them baseball, teaching them whatever sports, that they're involved with or whatever. So you do have that, but yet these guys here are not about that. They're not about that. They've got no bottom line. But anyway, you go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Dunbar, please.
No, I was going to say, on my original channel, I did read an excerpt from Dr. Claude Anderson's Powernomics about rugged individualism versus collectivism or community. And I can see, in this instance, this is where that rugged individualism would hurt the group, because if you have that expertise, and there are some young people who have the aptitude for that, yeah, then yeah, you almost got to help out. I mean, you got to, yeah, the young people who have the aptitude for this stuff, they have to be identified early and they have to be nurtured, or else they're going to fall off right away. Because in our ethnic group, it's just not right now as a group. It's just not sexy. You know, it's just not. If you sit around a Thanksgiving dinner table, I mean, how many folks are going to know who Neil deGrasse Tyson is, or Dr. Sylvester James Gates, or somebody? No one's going to know who that is, unfortunately.
Am I coming in okay? I'm still.
Yeah, you're okay now.
Okay, I'm trying to sort this out. Good.
Dr. Dunbar, I think we also have to take on the challenge of perception or misconception of masculinity, right? What does it really mean to be masculine, right? And we don't really see these types of Black men as masculine, right? You know, because they wear a suit and tie or they wear a lab coat. We think that, you know, that they can't fight or they can't, you know, because we associate in the Black community violence with masculinity, and that if you're in these workspaces, in these sort of industries, you know, violence is not really an application that can be utilized, you know, as a mechanism to get your job done. You really go about this a different way. And so, go ahead.
No, Mike, and you bring up an excellent point, and that science, in addition to being a discipline or a set of disciplines, it's also a culture.
Yeah.
It's a way of looking at the world. It's a way of moving throughout the world. It's a way of speaking. It's a way of being. And that conflicts with a lot of the stuff that it conflicts with the environments we grow up in. It really does. Because knowledge is critical there. Speaking clearly is critical there. Thinking independently of the group is critical there, and investing yourself in a thought-based craft is critical in those disciplines. And so, no, it's not outwardly flashy. It's not outwardly flashy. It's not the things that our people typically go for.
It's not extroverted, yeah.
It's not extroverted. It's not, it's funny, I was just at Pharrell Williams, Something in the Water weekend in Virginia Beach this weekend. And our people were there in droves and droves. We like that stuff. We like Coachella. We like that stuff. But I'm wondering how many people at that festival would know what the International Space Station is, or how many people at that festival would have heard of Elon Musk and what reusable rockets are.
Yeah,
we okay. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but that's kind of what we're facing here. So the young people who have the ability, they have to be identified and nurtured. Now, I will say one other thing, Mike. I don't want to hold you up, but what I've learned, because I'm in the federal government in the regulatory sector. You also need to know how to move and operate after you get your education. Once you get into these organizations, once you get into these corporations, once you get into the government, the business sector, wherever you go, it's important to know how to move and operate once you get in there. So I think that goes back to what you said about mentoring. Mentoring is throughout. It doesn't stop in high school. It doesn't stop in college. It has to keep going because there are rules of engagement. There are ways you succeed. There are ways you fail, even after you get your education.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I just, we need to really unpack this, because a lot of the brothers I work with now, I work in cybersecurity, but a lot of brothers I work with, man, they don't, they're nothing like a Future or Nipsey Hussle. Because even in the manosphere, we assume that what's the brother married to Sierra? Russell
Wilson.
Russell Wilson is corny and lame. I mean, this is coming from other Black men. This is not coming from women. It's coming from other Black men, right? And so they associate this, this ideal to brothers like him. And then also they think that guys who are in, let's say, in the pharmaceutical phase space, like Otsuka or GSK, name your pharmaceutical company. Those type of brothers, man, the way they move is not, they don't move with a level of aggression that is, I guess required for them as a litmus test to actually determine whether or not, what their authenticity is of Blackness. And so you put those type of Black men in that space in the academic setting, and now you're trying to cultivate more talent. But how do you cultivate that talent when it's constantly being put under the microscope of, is he masculine enough, right? What is his level of masculinity? Like all of these sort of things, man, that, even in this space, Dr. Dunbar, before you've gotten here, we've had people who wanted to fight us offline. They want to take us offline and actually, challenge us to a fist fight because of the conversations that we're having now and the articles that we're reading, which is why we even created a brain trust, so that we can actually have these sort of levels of discussion. And you see this sort of, this position that Black men are taking against other Black men. Now they call it, misandry, but back then they didn't call it misandry. They wanted to whoop your ass, if you said something, that challenged or was different from their worldview on these panels.
Yeah, well, I think you just got to something very, very important, and that's when you pursue one of the letters in the acronym, you got to find your tribe. You got to find that group where you will feel comfortable, and also that group that will respect you and what you have to offer. And that's the other complexity of it is when you're in your training and when you get out in the professional world, finding counterparts who will appreciate you and what you have to offer. Because as I don't know how much you guys respect the master teacher over here at BGS, but some of those content creators, they've broken down how education for some of our people, even once they still get their education, they still want to float in the streets a little bit, and they still want those elements. So I'm saying this to say that even after you get this training, it's still important. It's critical to find a tribe and find your tribe who will accept you and respect who you are and what you have to offer.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not future. You're not who was I looking at? You're not Lil
Uzi.
You're not those guys. No, you're articulate. You speak well. You present yourself well, and not everybody knows how to accept that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no. See, Dr. Dunbar. Here's the thing, right? See,
Yes.
So what you're kind of speaking to would be, say, what the success model for the archetype of brother that we're talking about would be the type of brother that's into, say, things like horology, cars, and more like the finer side of stuff. Like, once again, the things that this channel is reflective of, right? But it's interesting though that you said how fond we were of that guy. I would say, hey, it's what it is, right? But it's interesting when you have a concerted effort, let's just say, for brothers to say, hey, well, don't mess with them. Don't go look at them, or what they talk about is bullshit, even though it's fully vetted. It speaks to a certain type of psychology within this male group, this grouping that we're talking about. And see, and that's the danger. See, that's more of a danger than white supremacy. I'm gonna keep it a whole buck with you, because see, that's the dude who's in close proximity.
Yes,
that's the dude who's literally, when I turn around my back, he's the dude with the knife, right? See, and that and history's replete with this. When we think about who the trailblazers were and how they got took out and who took them out. Okay, you see, so I see it. I've seen it played out digitally, where there's just like a freezing or a back channel behind the scenes sort of, right? But then at the same time, we'll take certain talking points and then virtue signal when it's convenient, and then use platforms like this and concepts like Manager 3.0 as a goddamn shield, right? To shield themselves from criticism when all that other unimportant bullshit, right, starts to pile up onto their laps. And this is, like I said, dude, I'm gonna just throw it right out here. I've been unabashed about doing that, and I'll do it right now on this live stream. And that's what it is.
Yeah. Let me finish reading this last piece. The Census survey also asked about the views of specific factors that could encourage more young Black people to pursue STEM college degrees. A 54% majority of Black Americans say that more visible examples of higher achievers in these fields who are Black would make young Black people a lot more likely to pursue college degrees in STEM, while 27% say this would help a little, and 16% say this would not make a difference. 4 in 10 Black Americans think having more representation among students in STEM programs would make young Black people a lot more likely to pursue college degrees in STEM. A similar share, 38%, says young Black people would be a lot more likely to pursue college degrees in STEM fields if they had a high school teacher in these subjects who was Black. This view was about equally common among those who had and did not have a Black high school teacher in STEM class themselves. The importance of visible examples, which some people equate with mentors or role models, also come to mind in focus group discussions of this topic. One focus group participant, in talking about teens, explained they need examples, they need mentors, they need people in those fields to essentially walk them through. I always tell my youth, it's easy to do something when you've seen it. Black man aged 25 to 39. Black adults with higher levels of education are especially likely to see all three of these options as factors that would help attract more young Black students to STEM. For example, 75% of Black adults with a postgraduate degree and 73% of those with a college degree say that seeing more examples of high achievers in STEM fields who are Black would help a lot to attract more young Black people to these fields. By comparison, 60% of Black adults with some college education say this would help a lot, and 39% of those with no more than a high school diploma says this. There are similar patterns by education when it comes to the impact of having a same race high school teacher in STEM classes and the typical college or university having at least several Black students in STEM degree programs. Oh man, this is 7 pages. Oh man. Yeah, we definitely don't have time for this. This is great research by Pew, by the way. I think there's a few factors I have here. One, as somebody who's a part of NISBE, I think we do a poor job at attracting talent or cultivating the talent because we still work for white corporations. And what happens in these white corporations is that the lack of promotion also makes it difficult to see, for younger people to see us at the higher echelons of decision making. And so although we're in the industry, we don't actually make the decisions of hiring and the firing and whatnot. And so we're not actually influential in the areas necessary to bring more talent in. And so DEI programs are supposed to address this, but according to Microsoft, Google, and Facebook, they have not really moved their numbers at all. They are still below 4%. I think Microsoft is at 3.8%. Google is still at 3.5%, and Facebook is still, at around that 3.4 percentage mark. And so they've only moved, 0.5% since George Floyd. They have not really moved the numbers in the ways necessary to get that, representation that they so desperately need, to bring more Black people into STEM. I also think that the other factor here is how we teach STEM is broken. We're teaching STEM at the end, and we're not teaching STEM at the beginning in the K through 12 sector, and we don't have enough facilities that actually engage in STEM, like maker spaces and other public institutions that would actually help cultivate the curiosity of more of these students. I mean, here in Boston, we have the Museum of Science and the Children's Museum, but when it comes to, those are not in Black neighborhoods, those are in predominantly white neighborhoods. And so we don't really have that sort of thing available within predominantly Black neighborhoods, with Black children actually being the face of it and centering around Blackness. It's just not there. And so I think these are 2 or 3 areas that I find to be the biggest deterrent, according to this last piece. What's going on, Jay? What's your take on this?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Very interesting article.
Yeah, put some volume on your mic, please.
Is he there?
Yeah, he's here. He just needs to put some volume
okay.
on.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, go ahead, bro.
Okay, there you go.
Better. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that's conspicuously missing from this article, and that I'd be interested in, is the role of parents. Because one thing I noticed, for example, in my workplace, is dominated by Asians, but a lot of them actually didn't want to be in STEM. They were pushed by their parents. I'm wondering if in addition to mentoring of students, we need mentoring of parents themselves to show them why they should be pushing their kids into STEM. Because I think,
okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say now that's when you start peeling back the uncomfortable layers, because those Asian families, and I did work in a postdoctoral lab that was mostly Chinese, they take parenting seriously, so that they're being very intentional about it, and they're very intentional about what they have their children in. Now that's the polar opposite for a lot of our families today in 2023, where you're wrestling each other over who's going to lead and who's giving directions. Should directions be given?
But Dr. Dunbar,
yeah,
I would say one thing. There are parents who are trying to do the right thing, and I think those are low-hanging fruit, but they just don't know what it is. For example, I was involved in a mentoring program a few years ago, and the student, he failed math, like the state math exam. And so I called his mom, I was talking to her, and she was more concerned about his football. And I was like, what about his math scores? But I know she was a good mother, and I explained to her why this is more important than football. And I think I was able to get through to her. So I think there are inroads that could be made with the good parents that we do have.
Was the angle that you took that in order for him to even pursue football to the level that he has, say, like a talent for, he has to kind of nail these sort of fundamentals? Was that the angle you were taking?
No, my angle, and actually at my workplace, there's a program where we're going to go speak to some kids in Oakland, and it's kind of like testimonial, and I don't like that. I think we need to show hard numbers. Your chances of getting into NFL are astronomically low.
Yep.
Your chances of becoming an engineer significantly higher, and you show them the salary you earn. Here's a psychology. There's a great website. I think it's commerce.gov. It shows you starting salary and mid-career salary by major, and you just show them, hey, engineer starting out of college is making $90K in your region. Psychologist, unemployed dropout athlete is making $30K. I mean, which side do you want to be on? You want to live great,
right?
You want to have nice things. This is the path you need to take. And I think with that approach, it was very clear.
Okay.
You know what? I agree, and I apologize for defaulting back to that broad brush. I just, when you describe Asian families, they're culturally, it's just a completely different world than Black America.
Yeah, I agree. I think they understand the value of STEM 1. And that's one thing we're missing.
Dr. Dunbar, can you repeat that last point that you just said?
No, I just said that I maybe I shouldn't default back to that broad brush, but
no, I heard that part. The part you said.
Yeah, I was trying to say that. I was trying to say that when you're comparing Asian families to ours and Asian communities to ours, it's kind of like apples and oranges. It's night and day.
Okay,
it's different.
Okay, that's what I thought you said. So I had shared a video with Rael earlier in the weekend. He and I had a long conversation on the phone about it, and I think it really touches to what you're talking about here, because this is a video that was on Valuetainment, Patrick Bet David, and so they did a breakdown of basically the ethnicities in the United States, basically per family capita, right? Like per family, who's ranking where ethnicity wise in the United States. Okay, it was essentially a top 10, and it was essentially 8 out of the 10, I want to say, or 7 out of the 10 ethnicities were Asian. So I would posit to say, and you can give your input on this. I would posit to say there's a takeaway from that, because the point that he was making in that video was that, well, let's look at why it is that their incomes per family are higher than everyone else's. It was at like 100-something thousand on average, right? And then like if you want to use white people as a metric, dude, they were down to like 55 or something like that. And he made a joke about it. He even made a joke about the fact that his own ethnicity, he's a Syrian, wasn't even on the list, right? So he says, so what is it that we can take away from these people right here? And so the first thing that he looked at was, what industries are they in? And guess what? They're all in STEM.
Well, I think to what Dr. Dunbar's point is that you can't compare Asians in America to Black people, because
it's not a comparison, Mike. No, that's what I'm saying. It's not a comparison when it came up. And I just said it's interesting that Patrick Bet David made a video about this, because it's not a comparison. What he was relaying was that a lot of the things that we're talking about is what leads to their success. It's not a comparsion. It's really just sort of like, what do we take away from this, right? I mean, because it's like,
you can't extract anything from it, because you can't utilize what they're doing as a whole.
No, I'm just saying, no. I'm saying in reference to, I'm not making points across the board. I'm saying in reference to, say, like, for example, the salaries, the things that are going to pay those types of the types of income and stuff like that. I think it was the brother Jay. He even said that when he's talking, he talked to the mother of that athlete, and he was just kind of like, well, like let's be realistic here. If you're going to college, let's look at what your chances are of going to the NFL and all that versus using your college to get an engineering degree, and then you step into something that's paying you 6 figures right out the gate. And that's literally the same point that Patrick Bet David was saying. That's why I was like, I don't know if this is too much of a comparison, really. I think there's some points that are being made that are really congruent here.
I have to disagree with that, primarily because we live in a society that is structurally working against the collective interests of Black people. It's not working.
No, I'm not, Mike, I'm not speaking of that. I was literally speaking to what the gentleman was just saying here. Is he still here, Jay?
Yeah. I understand what he's saying, that
I was reiterating his point, though. I wasn't going extraneous from that. I was reiterating his point. That's it.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying a lot of people will use that and say that, well, Asians are doing one thing, Black people are, what are we doing in questioning, some of the things that we're doing. I think that what happens here in these discussions is that we don't take into consideration that there is structural racism working against the collective interests of Black people as a whole. And so when we talk about, some of these neighborhoods where Black people are coming from, there's a lot of disruptors that's in there. And we're not actually taking those social disruptors into consideration. That, like I was saying earlier, we don't have a museum of science in predominantly Black neighborhoods. We don't have that. We don't have these sort of institutions that are in there. Now, we do have HBCUs, but you don't get to that point until after high school, not before that.
No, I was going to say, but Mike, here's the thing, right? And point taken on all of that. But guess what we also have? We have the disruptors that look like you and I that are literally in spaces like YouTube, for example, right? Yeah. And so what I'm saying is, before we can talk about those other disruptors, why don't we talk about sort of like a cultural and a whole scale cultural adoption? Because that's the point that Patrick Bet David was inferring here. There's a cultural adaptation. Now, yeah, we're going to encounter all that shit when we get to it, of course. And that's why I'm saying I'm not negating nothing that you're saying, right? And that's why I'm also shouting out the brother. He said, well, what's more feasible in terms of acquiring some sort of like viable salary, right? So that you can get out here and live and then be competitive in the industrial markets here. What's more viable? And that's the most sensible thing. So that's all I was saying. I was just like, okay, because you made a point just a little while ago. It was just sort of like, okay, well, you have platforms like this that are literally espousing this, and who do we get a lot of shit from?
What I'm saying here is the reason why that mother would say the things that she's saying, you know, in terms of putting more emphasis behind the athletic part, is because that is their only meal ticket out from the situation that they're in.
True indeed. True indeed.
That is their only meal ticket.
I would disagree. It's not. They perceive it to be their only meal ticket.
It's their.
I agree with that.
It's the perception. It's their perception that that's the only meal ticket out. But what I'm saying here is, where's the representation for the other side, right? Where is the trajectory for all of that? That really has not been cultivated to that level, in the same capacity that we have.
Yeah, no argument there.
Yeah, in the same capacity that you have, you know, AAU sports and, you know, these sort of trajectory programs. We don't really have that when it comes to STEM. We just don't have that. Agreed.
No. And see, that's what I'm saying, Mike. I'm not disagreeing. I think all this shit has to be on the table, to be truthful, because there's literally because dude, like, I'd be stupid to sit up here and be like, nah, Mike, that's bullshit. That don't exist. That's a lie, dude. You know what I'm saying? But it's such a multifaceted, oh shit. Hold on.
And there's some blame on us as well, as professionals in tech.
Say that again, brother.
Yeah, I was just saying there's some blame on our end as well as professionals in tech. Individualism is rampant. I see mentorship programs where I'm the only Black person. Like, I see more Chinese people mentoring Black people than Black people at work. It's shocking. I don't get it.
Wait. Let me ask you a question. Is that it? Okay. Let me kind of just throw this out here for a quick conversation, right? And this rugged individualism thing, right? You know, there is very much a thing called an outlier, right? And those people do exist. And sometimes we have to understand and realize that we just may very well be those people, right? You see, so what I don't like is the fact that if what we have the ability to do is get out here and share a level of information that could be transcendental in such a way, it could be transitional for a lot of people, especially from a career standpoint. I don't like the fact that if you take the initiatives upon yourself to do it, all of a sudden you're a rugged individualist. Is this what I'm getting?
No, but like Mike said, we need to see more representation. Professionals have to go back to where they come from to show kids, but a lot of times people are like,
isn't that
it's not their fault.
Isn't that an individual impetus? Like, doesn't an individual have to say within themselves, you know what, I want to give back? And then what happens here is that those individuals coalesce as a group. Isn't that sort of how it happens?
No, wait a second, Complex. You're kind of putting.
I'm just asking. I'm not.
I'm saying you're challenging him. Like, let's take for instance Dr. Chris Jones, who ran for governor of Arkansas. Okay, he's an MIT graduate. He was far removed from Arkansas, and so for him to go back would mean that he would have to transplant himself from Massachusetts back to Arkansas, and you know, away from his studies and away from his current day job. That's for some people, that's just not a viable thing for them to do. So what Jay is saying.
No, that's not exactly what I'm talking about.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you're saying. No, I'm not saying. Okay. I understand you're saying that it's part of it is our fault that we're not going back into these communities. But I'm using Dr. Chris Jones as an example that for him to leave Massachusetts and go all the way back to Arkansas, it may not be the most viable thing for him at that moment. And so he has achieved a level of greatness that, most Black men have not in his area of expertise. And so I think that, for those type of Black men, it becomes a bit of a challenge, to get that representation back.
No, I agree with you. I mean, of course, there's instances where it's not possible, but for the most part, like we're in driving distance from a Black neighborhood with high schools, and a lot of guys aren't going, not mentoring, just basic things.
No, absolutely agree.
Hey,
Go ahead, Dr. Dunbar.
Hey guys, I have a question. I have to hop off shortly, but I have a question. You said that some guys wanted to fight you over what you were presenting. Number one, what were you presenting? And number two, I'll tell you a quick story. Shortly after I got my PhD, my father said I moved to where my father lives to do my postdoc, and he cautioned me against telling people in our community basically that I have a PhD, because he said some guys want to fight you, which means that in his paranoid mind sometimes, maybe there's some jealousy at having that aptitude for, or maybe having that degree. So I want to ask you guys, what were you guys presenting? And some of the pushback might be, who these guys think they are presenting this STEM stuff and encouraging these higher level things.
What
were you guys presenting?
With the same thing that we're talking about right now, like, space and technology, blockchain, these sort of areas of emerging technologies. There were some people who did not like the idea of being on panels, having these discussions where they can't be involved in a discussion. Like I was saying before, you can't really speculate on these areas of on these topics, because it's kind of written, in stone. We have standards. We have the IEEE. We have different, sort of institutions that kind of set the standards for how something works, and you can't kind of spitball your way through this. And I think what happens in this space is that certain Black men feel that, in order for the space to be more, inclusive, you also have to include the speculation aspect. And I don't like to speculate. I'm a pretty, cut to the chase, cite the source. We have to look at the data. I like to look at data. I like to look at historic grounding. And so I think that what happened in this space is that with us is that there were people who wanted to fisticuffs with us because they didn't like what we were presenting. And so,
well, Mike, whoa, let's take it a step further here, because we also have a track record of this, right? Things like UBI and blockchain and cryptocurrency and all that, right? See, there was a time when this was all sort of like fuzzy logic to a lot of the manosphere, and everybody thought we were crazy, only for every last bit of it to be implemented, right? And then for us to continue on with it, and then have businesses in it, and then do live streams about it, and then do deep dives into the conversations about all the stuff, and then have people who actually do engineering, and they specialize in, shout out to Engineering Cannabis, for example, right? He's our computer science, Mike, he's what is his officially, what does he do?
He's machine learning. He's machine learning AI.
Machine learning and all the AI and all that, right? That's what I'm saying. Like that is a very valuable resource to have, right? For a channel like this. And it's called the Brain Trust for a reason. Okay, it's called the Brain Trust for a reason. This isn't my channel. This isn't Mike's channel, right? We created it together with a bunch of other guys. It's a brain trust. So it's what you do is you add your knowledge base to it, so that we can all then upload the information that you have, and then we all get bolstered here. That's how this is supposed to function.
Yeah, let's have some closing thoughts. I know Dr. Dunbar had to jump off, so I appreciate you coming up.
Hey, Mike, let me go first. Hey, good job, guys. I will try to come around more. Okay. This we
appreciate you, man.
More of this. Yeah, I need some more of this. I need to come together with you guys.
Hey, wait, real quick, Dr. Dunbar, can you just see Dr. Dunbar is he's not exactly a stranger here. We collaborated on a live stream last year, you and I.
Yes. Yeah, we did.
Right. So Dr. Dunbar, he himself is not a stranger around here. If there's a moderator who could drop his channel, be greatly appreciated. And I appreciate you for having coming on up, bro. Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. You guys take care. Talk to you soon.
All right. Peace. Jay, you got anything you want to, any closing thoughts?
Great discussion. I especially agree with your point that we're having this discussion too late. We need to be prepping kids for STEM in kindergarten and grades 1 through 5, in my opinion.
You have Jamaican background, right?
Yes.
This brother on screen is actually Jamaican himself.
Oh yeah, I was listening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I was listening.
Kind of reminds me of you.
All right, no, this guy's on another level.
Oh, really? Wow. All right, thanks for coming up, bro.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, I'm gonna go ahead and step away, man. I'm gonna go ahead and finish getting dinner together, man. I appreciate you for having me up. Sorry about all the audio shit. Sorry about that, man.
All right, bro.
All right, bro.
Nagon, you got anything? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, like I say, más vale tarde que nunca. What that means is better late than never. It's great to have this conversation. It's never too late to have it. Great to have this information out there, and just let us continue to move forward. Just to press forward. That's really all I can say. I have a grandson, and he certainly is moving towards the STEM area, and pushing him hard. And hey, look, this is exceedingly relevant. But anyway, Mike, thanks for having me up here.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button on the way out and hit that notification.